Hi there, I'm Richard Hill, the host of eComOne, and welcome to episode 215. In this episode, I'll speak with Joe Lambadjieva, CEO and founder of Amazing Wave. Right off the back of last week's episode, where I share what we're doing in the agency with AI, Joe brings a fresh perspective from working with dozens of Amazon and Ecom businesses integrating specific e-commerce SEO processes with AI. We cover loads in this one. How AI can help uncover hidden inefficiencies and protect profitability. What's the best way to introduce AI into workflows without overwhelming people or creating resistance? Some of the most common mistakes Joe sees seven-figure sellers making when trying to adopt AI, and Joe's must-have AI toolset. And of course, so much more in this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Hi, Joe. How are we doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Richard.
No problem at all. I am very excited for this one, as you might have guessed after having a little chat beforehand, but I'm very excited to get you on. Thank you so much for coming on the show. But I think before we get into all things AI, Ecom, Amazon, it'd be great to tell our listeners how you got into this world.
Sure. So I've been in digital marketing e-commerce for about 14 years now. And before I started getting into AI, I kind of did I wore a variety of hats in the e-commerce space. I used to head up the Amazon team of an Amazon aggregator. Before that, I used to run a boutique vendor agency for Amazon vendors. And before that, I used to work with wider e-commerce brands, so like D2C and retail space on their performance marketing. So I kind of come like my background is very much in e-commerce, in strategy and processes. And so in November 2022, when ChatGPT came out, I started at that point trying to figure out how I can use ChatGPT for my team at the time. And then I was like, oh, wow, this is so incredible. And I started really geeking out about it. And anybody that knows me or reads my newsletter can attest that I'm 100% geek. And so gradually I started just trying to learn as much as possible about AI, specifically in the niche or the use cases of e-commerce. And then slowly grew my kind of, I guess, passion, knowledge, and then, yeah, footprint in that space. And so that's basically it.
So full time in AI then? Yeah.
Well, I think this is the thing. It's like it's misleading. I would define myself more as an e-commerce professional who knows AI quite well. So
Yeah. So you're sort of an e-commerce professional first, but you're using AI to help e-commerce professionals, but using that
exactly.
sort of e-commerce knowledge to align sort of AI's tech, the use of AI in ecom. Yeah, very, very. It's so excited. It's just like literally. This is the thing that I sort of probably go to bed 3 nights a week and think, like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this, we could
Yeah.
do this
This is the
with
thing.
you.
It creates such a crazy FOMO. Like even I can feel it with myself. I write a newsletter all about AI and e-commerce 3 times a week, and I
Wow.
literally read everything there is about just in general about AI, but also AI in marketing, e-commerce, etc. And I still feel like I'm behind. And so
Yeah.
you can get this feeling of, oh my God, there is just so much opportunity. There is so much going on. What should I do next?
I think that's going to resonate with it, with me definitely, but the listeners. I think ultimately you do, and I'm probably not too far behind you, but definitely behind you in terms of the amount of time, I'm sure. But spend a lot of time thinking about researching and trying and different things. But then I do wonder: are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? And I think for the listeners that are listening now, that are the business owners, the marketing directors, what would you say to those guys? How would either they're probably getting pressure from above to do more with their AI stack, whether that's in the
Yeah.
obviously marketing, operations, there's all sorts of areas within the ecom side. Maybe what stage of a ecom business should the sort of senior leadership take AI seriously?
Any stage. You can literally, honestly, this is my very, very, very honest opinion. You can be
Yeah.
literally just starting out. You might be just not even starting out. You might just have an idea. Start with AI because AI can, obviously, we talk a lot right now about agentic AI, automations, etc. And this is like, I would say, some more complex processes. But AI can just, in general, help you so much with anything from like ideation to getting to brainstorming to injecting data into your hypothesis in terms of like how to, let's say, develop a business, how to find the next product, how to improve your product, anything. And so I would say at any stage of your business, you should be already testing AI and seeing the use cases that it can help with. Now, of course, the larger, I would say, the larger your team is, the more actually AI can really help improve efficiency, improve processes, and augment the existing talent that you have in your company. But
Mm.
even if you're just a one person band, I would say it can, like, 2x or 3x your productivity, and also give you new ways to think about existing product problems that maybe before you haven't really ever thought
Yeah.
about.
So do you walk around talking to your, let's say, ChatGPT or your, depending on which one's your favorite? Are you one of those?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to say, yesterday I was going for a walk in the park, and I just had a little conversation with ChatGPT, and
Yeah.
I had a few people give me a little bit of a weird look, but
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's like, you
Yeah.
literally, for example, to give you a real use case yesterday. So I had a business call and I had to put together kind of a proposal, but I just really hadn't had the time to really think really through some of the mathematics. And so I asked ChatGPT to like be kind of my sparring buddy and like help me
Yeah.
like go like step by step to think, okay, what will make financial sense, how to like analyze the situation, what are the pros and cons. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this while I'm walking because I think
Yeah.
much better while I walk. And so we,
Yeah.
we did it that way. And so it like by the time I had the meeting, I was ready because I
Yeah.
had this like second brain that helped me think through something, not give me the answer, but help me think
Yeah.
through something.
It makes you think about things. Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that. And then you can drill
Yeah.
into that thing. I did exactly that. Literally, it's almost like we did the same last whatever Thursday. I was on the treadmill in the gym, and I'm just literally headphones in, talking to ChatGPT, asking it about an idea that I've got within the agency to do with AI,
Yeah.
and how to do this certain thing, and what would be the next step with this, and drill into the very actionable things that we can do. And have you thought about that? And looking at the competition, doing this, and it was just a half an hour. I had a few looks on the treadmill. My wife walked past. She's like, "Am I on the phone?" She thought I was on the phone to somebody. So she's like, "Who are you on the phone to?" I was like, "Oh, I was chatting to ChatGPT."
I know
So
but like it's amazing. Like me and my husband. Like he's not very like he's not very big fan of AI, but like even he is like, oh, can you ask ChatGPT about this like one thing? And so we have a casual chat about a recipe or an itinerary
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
It's amazing.
I think it's just more and more, like you say, when you start maybe spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however many hours a day, and we could do it for that. Like one of my
Mm.
newfound things is asking it to find working discount codes. It's just like, find me a working. Everything I buy now, it's like, find me a working. It's got to be a working discount code for this thing. We bought some software last week, which was I think it was $1,000, and it saved us like $350.
Nice.
And
Well
that
done,
code,
ChatGPT.
that code I couldn't find on Google, which is very interesting. But okay, so we digress. We're both, we both like to walk and talk to ChatGPT. That's
There
okay.
you
I'm
go.
sure there's some other people out there that do the same. Like you said, though, I think that's a great sort of analogy. That sort of sparring partner, and I think that's
Mm.
what it's just brilliant at is enabling you and our listeners to have a discussion with an expert in an area to get an opinion. Of course, you've got to be careful what you trust maybe and what's what, but it really gives you a bit of a head start in a lot of areas. So let's change direction a little bit. So I think we work with a lot of brands that are sort of 1 to 30 million turnover on
Mhm.
the e-commerce side of things. And I think when brands hit this sort of £1 million mark, there's more and more sort of operational challenges with businesses there. They might have been, very busy getting to that point, but there's a few things maybe going wrong around them, maybe
Yeah.
operationally. Not always, but it's quite common. Where do you see AI having an impact on that side of e-commerce?
Yeah, I think again, I would say AI can have impact on every single element or process of in your organization. I think the reality is that I see AI kind of like in having three roles in an organization. The first one is to make things more efficient, to save time. The second is to essentially create more data driven processes. And I think that's something that is widely under talked about. That's not a phrase, but people don't really talk about that benefit so
Yeah,
much. They think about, okay, I can do more stuff and I can do them faster and it can be cheaper, but actually the data benefit is massive. And third, and I think again, unpopular topic, but very true, is that AI is really good at augmenting your talent. It's not about replacing them.
yeah,
Honestly, it's a cliche, but it's true. It's not there to replace humans, although it is also true that by having more efficient team, you might not need to hire as many people, but the team
yeah,
you have, it will make it even better. And
yeah,
so, from that point of view, when you hit 1 million, and even if that is just you and let's say a bunch of virtual assistants or just you, well done, human.
yeah,
AI can really really help you, as I said, become more efficient, systematize and automate to an extent certain processes that are very repeatable, and it will make you make better decisions by having more data to work with. Now if you have a team, it's even more, I would say, clear benefit, because the humans that are working on a task now have a constant co-pilot. I've worked for so long in the agency world, and there's always the problem of, especially when you hire someone new, there's a question of, hey, this person keeps asking their more senior people, where should I find this, how should I do this, etc. Well, just this one use case, like this case study, can be lifted off by AI for majority of the tasks, because you can create yourself, and I'm not even again talking about some complex agents or automations. I'm talking about a simple custom GPT or Claude project where you load up a lot of your SOPs and
yeah,
kind of like a map of where everything is in your organization, and every newcomer can
yeah,
literally tap in and ask, where is this, how do I do this,
yeah,
etc., and it
yeah.
dives in directly into your processes. So it has so many use cases, and it can save tons of time and make things much more efficient for everyone, no matter how large your organization is.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. You mentioned Claude there. I think we're a big fan, massive fan. To be fair, we have a lot of our team have full access and whatnot. So for those that don't know, I think maybe if what would your sort of take on Claude be in terms of its strengths and what you would recommend to use it for? You mentioned projects there and loading data into a project. Maybe explain that a little bit more for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for anyone who has ever listened to a podcast with me talking about I am a total Claude fangirl. I literally gush. It's embarrassing. But but in reality, I think Claude is, I would say, one of my favorite tools for many reasons. So obviously, most people would work with ChatGPT, and I always like to compare ChatGPT to a Swiss Army knife. It can do so many things. It can do so many things really well, and it's obviously the most popular tool for a reason. But what Claude, maybe I guess like doesn't deliver in terms of having so many functionalities, though it's getting there. It compensates with the quality of writing and the quality of thought. So for me, Claude is the most human sounding writer there is right now, like that I am aware of in terms of AI tools. And it's the most superior in terms of understanding of like semantic understanding of text. And so
Yeah.
if you have any sort of text based task, whether it's to analyze like a particular tone of voice in your documents, or it's to analyze customer reviews, or it's to categorize particular keywords in a particular idea, or to just write anything. Claude, I feel, is probably right now the best tool out there for that.
Yeah.
Aside from that, obviously, Claude has things like projects, which is the if you're aware of what custom GPTs are, projects are something similar. Obviously, I'm not going to go into that in too much detail, but like they just came up with the MCP sort of availability, which connects tons of apps and makes like let's call it agentic or automated AI much more like easily available for teams. And it also does something really cool called artifacts, where you can, in essence, build yourself like small functioning applications that you can use in your team. So, just to give you an example, yesterday I built a tiny like artifact within Claude, which is an RFP generator. So, like, you just fill up like very simple few lines, and then it gives you an entire like 4-page detailed document of like request for proposal, which normally would take ages for somebody to write, but with
Yeah.
this it's super automated. And
Yeah.
so it has so many use cases. And I think, and I also like, just to finish with Claude, I also really like what like their idea and ethics behind Claude and the way they are developing it. I think the it's and I think this is going to matter more and more as we progress and AI becomes more developing. Like how these AI systems are built, what are their morals, ethics, and how they approach, let's say, anything. So that is something also I find really much better
Mm.
in Claude than versus like ChatGPT or OpenAI and other.
Yeah. It's interesting you pick Claude over others. That's exactly literally what we do. You know, we've it's Claude is the one that we use for words and for thought. And it seems to continually just out, you know, even when the new versions of, you know, ChatGPT 5 came out, what, a month ago, maybe
Yeah.
less. You talked about projects, you know, and sort of, I guess the idea is to, you create a project within Claude and then you give that project information to help it deliver more specific output, words, content. Have you got any real sort of like what's some of the smartest, cleverest things you've done to feed a project? You know, I know like a lot of people like they upload, you know, tone of voice documents, site maps, and you know, look at this website, look at LinkedIn profiles, and you know, that's sort of probably quite straightforward stuff. But anything that'll make our listeners go, "Oh my gosh, that is so smart!" What sort of things could you train or give to the
Yeah.
project?
I mean, this is the thing. It's like, uh, it's not, it doesn't have to be anything like over the top smart. It's
Yeah.
about utility. And again, I think like just before I kind of give you some examples, I think here it's really important to talk about, quality, and it's really important to talk about expectations, and it's really important to talk about hallucinations. So because I get asked these questions like, what is the most amazing thing, and like, what about you do this and this. Yes, anyone in the AI space will come and tell you that this amazing like system can solve all of your problems. You basically fire your entire staff and you go to the beach and AI runs your business and you are hunky dory. But the reality is that for anyone that works with AI seriously every day, you would know that there is serious limitations, and you would know that like AI hallucinates on the regular, and also it's prone to give you, let's say, pretty like bland, generic bullshit if you don't prompt it or if you don't like essentially build it in the right way. And so I think in the end, for me, the most interesting use cases or the things that I work on are things that are like actually boring, repeatable, but like real true problems that take time. And
Yeah.
so I think, when it comes to actual examples, it can be anything from like, it can be in any field, right? So it can be like your HR team, like building, let's say, a system which both creates, like, let's say, job specs, and then like having like a system that evaluates CVs and, let's say, transcripts from interviews, and then gives you additional cues that maybe you have missed as a human in the meeting by like seeing that transcript and seeing all of the, let's say, the
Mm.
vocal cues, right? And so this is one interesting way. Another interesting way is like obviously anything to do with like invoices, etc. Like, you can create a system which, like, you feed all of that, it gives you like ready sort of reports, and then you feed it into another system to do anything to do with content generation, obviously. So I mean, Claude is a little bit limited in terms of the text based kind of limitation. I think, with ChatGPT, you can be much more creative because you can integrate images, you can integrate videos into your workflows. Um, Claude, I think, is starting to get some sort of image capability, but I haven't
Mm.
I haven't even paid attention because right now we have Nano Banana just came out, and that's
Yeah, yeah,
basically
yeah. That was
so.
all over the socials the last couple of days. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And so, I think anything to do with creating, let's say, email funnels, like, concepting ads on social media, like actually analyzing competitors' visuals, creating like
mm.
analysis and content briefs out of that. And then, this is actually better maybe done with ChatGPT, and then creating, like, let's say, the ads. So many use cases.
Yeah, yeah. That I think everyone should be thinking now. That's with us. That's when you talk about interviews. So would you then take a audio recording of an interview and then question the AI about that interview, about that recording?
Well, for example, most companies now utilize like AI, like
Yeah.
meeting recorders, and this is actually great because that I like that is one of the underpinnings of, let's say, a good process to actually have, whether it's your client call or it's your like call with a supplier or it's an interview with a candidate. There is so much data that it's basically ready there. It's like
Mm.
transcribed for
Mm.
you, and you can use it to automate like a lot of the menial tasks. But like, for
Yeah.
example, when it comes to an interview with a candidate, you can absolutely, like, feed this candidate's interview the CV, the job spec, and then potentially, like, even use like the way they express themselves, how they led the conversation, to like try and like do some sort of like personality hypothesis. Like,
Yep.
you can feed things like who will be that person managing, or who they be managed by, and like, based off the vocal cue, how they express themselves, how proactive, like how introverted, extrovert, there's just so many things you can
Yeah.
analyze.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that in itself is a much richer way to make a decision versus somebody, like as we used to do in the olden days. You have someone on a call for an hour, they might be like, let's say, not in there, they might be nervous, you might be missing a lot because you're prejudiced because they're nervous, and that in
Yeah.
itself is your own human bias. But actually, if you just focus on their answers and what is the
Yeah.
information that they convey to you, then you start seeing maybe something more than just your own human bias because, let's say, they're not the most confident and extroverted person
Yeah.
in an interview.
That's a great point. I think a lot of people are nervous, but that's not necessarily. That's just a a lot of people are. And after that, if you're basing the interview on that first 3 or 4 minutes where maybe they're really nervous, then you're going to maybe have the wrong opinion, really, of that individual. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. We interviewed for a role about 3 months ago, and both of the candidates interviewed brilliantly, and we were like, "Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?" Me and my colleague Carrie Ann, who you've liaised with,
Yeah.
and so we both interviewed this two candidates, and they were both just so brilliant and so good in slightly different ways, of course. So we did. We put the CVs in. We didn't record the interviews, unfortunately. I wish we had now, and got some additional sort of feedback and additional sort of questions that then we asked them in a second interview. So that helped us and pushed us slightly in a direction. So it was quite useful. Yeah, it just gave us that, going back to having that sort of sparring partner, that recruitment sparring partner, to just to think of things to ask, maybe, that because you're not quite sure about something or somebody. And yeah. So there's so many areas, isn't there? So maybe then, just to put you on the spot completely. So if you're building out a very smart project within Claude to do with creating content for an e-com store, what sort of things do you feed it?
Okay, well, so again, like here would depend on, for example, what is the data available in the company. And
Yeah.
so another important point that I like to talk about, and I think people don't necessarily find this topic particularly sexy, but it's going to become much more important, is your data hygiene. Or like, how do you actually start thinking about organizing your internal data and systematizing your internal data? Like, a lot of people talk about prompting, and prompting is really important and you have to learn it. But prompting is like going to be as good as you like giving enough context about your company, your target audience, like what good looks like, your, like, your criteria. All of this is systematized data, and that systematized data has to be done like by the organization. And so going back to what will be a really good way to build a project goes back to like, how can you systematize the data to feed the project so that actually Claude has as much as possible information on what it needs to do. And then the actual build is not so complicated, because if you have the right examples, if you have a way to like, gather like, as much as possible templates, information about your audience, information about what makes them tick, information about like what are the use cases of whatever you're selling, their aspirations, and so forth, and so on, and you are able to translate that into the best possible format for an AI to read. And then you have a very clear criteria of, okay, I want, like, let's say we're doing email funnels. So on my email funnels, you want you to give me like 2 variations. This is what a good subject line is. This is how you build and construct the copy. This is all of the information we know about what are the topics that our audience is like, keen to learn or listen or hear from us. Then you have a really good project. But again,
Yeah.
it goes back to not just what you want to do, but how do you create the building blocks in an ongoing, processed, focused way in order to like make that project be as good as possible and make it repeatable across as
Mm.
many different functions of the business as possible.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I think I think people do try, well, they sort of overcomplicate it. You explained it very, very clearly, I think. So slight change of direction then. So I think obviously you do a lot with brands around Amazon. So brands that are already sort of very successful on Amazon, doing multiple seven figures on Amazon, what sort of things are you seeing in terms of what shifts are you seeing on Amazon with sort of firms that are embracing AI and doing well with AI?
Okay, well, I think the something that a lot of sellers may not be aware of, but actually I wrote about is last week, and it came like really to light really prominently last week, was that actually now Rufus has memory. Okay, so like for people who don't know what Rufus is obviously Amazon's AI shopping assistant, whereby you can go in and either like try and find a product through the homepage or ask a question about the product listing that you're looking at this particular point. And I think Rufus is something that people should not disregard, because I think it's going to become ever so more important, not just for product discovery, but more so for product conversion. And so one of the main things that, is changing right now in like the whole e-commerce space, but specifically in Amazon, is that we're looking at these AI shopping assistants that are helping us make decisions about our like product choices based on a conversation versus us typing keywords and browsing through many listings, which has been the way we have been shopping for the last 20 years. And because of that, the entire way we need to think about essentially approaching this customer or this customer finding us has to change. And then now what happens is that, like, specifically within the Amazon remit, Rufus now has memory, which means that, you can put all of the nice keywords in your listing and optimize it as much as possible for keyword richness. And that still matters and that's still important. But now it also matters what Amazon knows about that customer. What have they purchased, how they browse, like what other purchases they have made, like do they know that you have a family of 5, or do they know that, like, you have bought, I don't know, your toilet paper about a month ago and maybe now you need a new one. So all of this is information which now Amazon and therefore Rufus is going to use to recommend products when customers are browsing. And so a lot is changing right now in e-commerce, but a lot of is changing on Amazon. And I think if I have to give one advice on to Amazon sellers, is to start thinking about the customer, who their customer is, as the starting point of absolutely everything they do, whether it's from a listing point of view, whether it's from a basically advertising strategy or anything else.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, are you finding then that brands, or are you advising that brands should think differently in terms of the way that they do their product listings? Because people are obviously, the way that people are searching is changing. They're asking longer, more sort of detailed questions. So you've got to cover that information in the listing to therefore get picked up in Rufus and maybe in other LLMs as well. You're finding that the brands that are doing more with their sort of longer tail research and longer tail descriptions and long descriptions are doing better.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think it's just about like the nuance. So it's not about longer, it's about being contextually relevant
Yeah.
towards the specific situation of their target audience. And so just to give you an example, I just finished working with a big marketplace agency to like build a system which optimizes their clients listing for Rufus and Cosmo. So Cosmo is the kind of the, let's say, the AI algorithm that underpins like Rufus. And so the focus of this product listing optimization system was, how do we understand the customer in such great depth that that insight is then able to be injected within the listing. And so this means understanding, obviously, who their ideal customer persona is. But that happens through, firstly using first party data, and then secondly using as much as possible insight from reviews. Then also, how do we make sure that we inject like the existing Rufus questions on the listing and also the 15 like key attribute Cosmo questions? So, so it's not about the length; it's about injecting as much as possible customer focused context. And one piece of research or like a white paper that I would really recommend people to read is it's called the Rufus Blueprint, and it was written by Danny McMillan, Andrew Bell, and Oana Poderadio, and they did essentially a white paper on the Rufus patent, and they did a really really extensive job of analyzing what actually Rufus takes in consideration when essentially it gives information back to the customer, and it's really really good. And that is kind of a great, it's a very long piece, but it's very very detailed and it helps you really understand how this thing
Yeah.
works.
Well, I think we'll link that up. So you guys that are still with us, look in the show notes. We'll link that up, and you'll be able to take a read of that. Make a cup of tea by the sound of it. It's a long one, but it sounds very very interesting. So we've covered quite a bit of ground there, but I think what one of the big questions I sort of think about is sort of this resistance from companies when it comes to sort of change, and obviously a lot of change at the moment. When we think about, right, we're gonna use AI for, we can talk about, operations, inventory, marketing, and so forth, and so on and so on. But what would you say is sort of some of the best ways to introduce new AI workflows, new AIs into a business without sort of overwhelming and worrying existing team members?
I think the best way is to educate your team members. I think that's actually the first step. Because one, let me break this to you, is that your teammates are already worried. Like, you basically have to live under a stone to not be worried about what's happening. And actually, people should be worried. I think it's anyone who says, don't worry about it is lying. Like, people should be worried. I want people to be scared because if you don't pay attention, like, AI can replace you, or like
Yeah,
a not a very good like person, like your professional who knows how to use AI would replace you. And so
yeah,
don't sleep on that. So like one thing I would say is like for people who manage teams, the first the first step is to educate your team, to empower them, to encourage them to use AI, to create a system where using AI in their day to day is rewarded, acknowledged, and appreciated. Because let me tell you, like a AI optimized process comes best from the people who run that process, because they
yeah,
are the ones who
yeah,
understand what good looks like, how this thing has been running, what are the the cranes and nooks that anyone external wouldn't know about. And so if they already know, okay, this is what AI is capable of, this is what AI,
yeah.
like what these are the AI's pitfalls, but I can let's say automate this and this part and inject a bit of data by using this and this tool, and this will make this process better. Then you have an AI powered team with an AI first mindset that builds you AI processes.
So it's about enabling your team, giving them the time, giving them the space, maybe the some resource to be able to play, to probably play is the wrong word, but within reason. So they are, embracing, they are able to get excited rather than worried or scared, because they realize, actually, I'm really good at my job, but by using this, and this, we can now be maybe 20% more efficient or a lot more, which means then I've got time to do this, which means, ultimately we may be adding 5% to the bottom line of the business, which overall we no longer need to get to 50 people to do the 50 million. We can do it with 40 people by upskilling and training the existing team. They're maybe happier because they're not worried, and they are upskilled, so they're getting maybe rewarded in terms of
Yeah.
financially, getting paid a little bit more or a lot more in some instances. So yeah, I think it's an interesting. I see a lot of. It surprises me that still. I mean, obviously we do this all day. This is our day to day, but it does surprise me. We speak to hundreds of ecom brands, and it's a lot of them are. They're maybe buying certain SaaSes and certain the platforms and so forth that are using AI within, email and different sort of SaaS tools, but then that's almost all they're doing, rather than then what can they build or who can they work with, like people like yourself and us, to help them build and help them, embrace and train them and so forth. Because you guys do you do training for companies as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, just to go back to that point about buying SaaS that is AI powered, every SaaS right now is AI powered. Let me tell you, like every SaaS that I've seen right now in the market has an AI somewhere in the title. The problem
Yeah.
with that approach is that sure you can buy it, but again you are trying to take a shortcut of a problem that will continue existing, which is your team needs to know how to prompt. Your team needs to know how to
Yeah.
add context. Your team needs to understand why data and data hygiene is important. That doesn't come with a button. That comes
Yeah.
with understanding and process and methodology. Like like creating a ongoing let's say initiatives that push your team to be constantly inquisitive and constantly figuring out what is happening with AI, because AI doesn't sleep. It's like the fastest like developing thing I have ever seen.
Yeah.
I seriously feel like completely overwhelmed by how much change there is in just 1 week in the world of AI. And if
Yeah.
you are just right now starting, you're way behind. So,
Yeah.
you have to get going. You have to get your team to understand which large language model they should use for this part, or
Yeah.
why this, for example, data that you fed is obviously not getting retrieved properly. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. So let's think about some of these bigger merchants. These sort of maybe 5-10 million pound plus merchants that are um, they're sort of implementing AI. That's a very poor statement, but they're doing things. What are some things they should really be thinking about, to stay competitive over the next year, over the next sort of couple of years? So the bigger merchants, where can they have the biggest impact with implementing AI in their businesses?
Yeah, I think back sort of same point, investing in your team. I think investing in data, like creating sort of all of the architecture to ensure that your data is basically clean, stored in the right place, and optimized for machine
Yeah,
learning. Because like once you get to that point where you have more budget to invest, you can work with open source models. You can tune your own models. You can like essentially build much more complex applications that are particularly tailored to the needs of your business, to your customers, and then it becomes an even more advanced game. I think the other thing that businesses really should focus on is understanding how search is changing. I think that's a really big topic. A lot of people talk about it, but I think it's one of those things that it's going to hit people in the face much faster than anyone expects. Um, Only last week or like a couple of weeks ago, I was reading an article by search engine land that said that 500 that AI search traffic has grown by 527% year on year. And that without the context is obviously, like, with the context, that is still pretty small number, but
yeah,
uh, it, it's growing so fast. And what I think is really even more important is that's actually a stat by Ahrefs that I think they did a study where only 0.5% of their traffic like came from like AI search engines, but that traffic drove 12% of converters.
yeah. A
And
lot higher
so
conversion.
you basically are now in this world where you have AI search traffic, and that is not maybe on par with anything that comes from Google. But the reality is that that traffic is so much more, has such higher intent,
Yeah,
and it's going to continue growing. And
yeah,
so if you don't figure out how to get recommended by ChatGPT, Perplexity, like AI, Google AI overviews, I feel like very, very soon, all that you have been working for the last, I don't know, however many years you've been investing in Google, it's going to evaporate. And so this is something really, really important.
it is. it, I'm so excited about that.
Mm.
This massive, we talk about it so much, this, how many days is it away before we go to Google and there is no top 10? There is nothing
Mm.
there other than AI mode. That's the default.
Yeah.
That's going to be, it could be so quick. It could just be, or maybe not, or there's maybe some middle ground. But obviously, pretty much most days, it's trying to recommend me in Google, for example, to use AI mode. So you click on AI mode,
Yeah.
and then boom, top 10's gone, the ads are gone. So then what? You're relying on SEO, traditional SEO and PPC. So yeah, investing in now how to rank's probably the wrong word, but how to be visible in search, on all these platforms. As you said, Claude, Perplexity, and so forth, GPT, when you chat to GPT like me and Joe do on your phone and ask it, what do you know about my brand? And then if your data's not in order, and it's not been fed properly about your brand and so forth, and you're not coming up, I implore everybody listening to just sort of look what you look like in the different LLMs, because it is, as you said, it's a small part, but it's moving. That 1% to 2% to 5% to 10%, and then the conversion rate. Absolutely, they're people that have asked very specific questions and got a very specific answer. If it's got the
Yeah.
right answer, the intent to buy from that search is just huge. So it is a semi-obsession of some of my team in here. We've got a whole episode coming up on that actual
Awesome.
topic completely. So I'm intrigued, Joe, around like there's so many, like you said, there's so many things out there. If we sat here now and did nothing for a year and just listened to videos, and we'd never get through it. In terms of everything changing and new models and new versions of this and this new UGC tool and this. But I think it's always good to hear from other experts like yourself on their sort of maybe top one or two sort of tools that they really recommend at the moment. And of course, I'll probably ask you in a month and it'll completely change. But in terms of like ecom stores, there's a lot around obviously imagery, creating creatives for meta ads and UGC, and a couple of things around that side of things, that you're seeing that are really, really strong at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to keep it really simple. I obviously like test a lot of tools, but rarely do I see something that I think is not going to be killed by the big guys, because all of the tools are in essence AI wrappers, or most of them are. And so I like to keep it simple, and to invest my time to learn how to use these tools really well. So you need a subscription to ChatGPT, you need a subscription to Claude. Like, these for me are non-negotiable. These are the ones that I pay. You need a subscription to an agentic browser. Now, whether that's Comet or, like, for me is GenSpark and sometimes Manus. Like, these tools are incredible, and they can cut so much time in terms of research, and they get better and better each day. In terms of images and video, I would say right now, like, for light touch stuff, if you don't want to invest too much, you're good to go with like the ChatGPT images and Sora. But if you are really looking to create like AI powered ads, or conceptualize with AI or video, I would say that VO3 and the latest Nano Banana model, which is Flash 2.5 by Gemini,
You got to love
are
that
the.
name.
I know,
Nano banana.
it's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, the word banana is anyway great, so now we have a reason to say it all the time.
I feel like we just got to buy it just because of the name. Yeah,
Yeah,
Nano
yeah,
banana. Who wants Nano banana in the office?
exactly.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's one I'm very excited to try. I've not tried that yet. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter literally this week, isn't it? I think there's a lot of chat on that. Well,
Yeah,
Joe, I feel that we could go on for hours. I think I feel like we just scraped the surface. I think we'll look to get you back on if that's okay. But really,
yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book to recommend to our listeners?
Okay, well, I have a lot of books to recommend because I love reading books. But if you're looking for an AI focused book, I don't have one. I don't really
No.
read about AI. I read
Anything?
about AI online every day,
Yeah.
so. Um, just a general book
Yeah,
recommendation.
whatever book you think that's maybe helps you. It doesn't have to be AI related. It could just be
Okay.
it could be a book on fairy tales or anything that
Okay.
you would recommend that help you in any way.
Right. So one book that I really recommend to anyone who hasn't read it, so it's a very well-known book, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's a really great book for just understanding what your habits are and potentially how to change them. And I just literally this morning finished listening to a really beautiful book called The Covenant of Water for
Oh,
anyone who loves an epic long book based on history and personal narrative. That's a beautiful book.
that sounds fabulous. I will. I'll have a look at that personally, and we'll link up both of those recommendations in the show notes. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Joe. For those that want to find out more about what you do and more about sort of AI and so forth, obviously, I know you have a newsletter. If you want to tell our listeners a bit more about your newsletter and best way to reach out to you.
Yeah, sure. So I publish the AI for e-commerce and Amazon sellers newsletter 3 times a week, as I said. It's now read by more than 45,000 subscribers. I publish it very regularly. I do it with a lot of love. It was always meant to be something that I invest a lot of my person, and there is a lot of big fans of it. So if you want to learn how to use AI and what's happening with AI within the remit of e-commerce, I definitely recommend, though I'm a little biased. If you want to get in touch with me, you can either connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, I post a lot of very actionable tutorials and SOPs there. My long ass surname will definitely lead you straight there. Yeah, you can also check out my website, amazingwave.digital, where I basically help e-commerce brands build AI powered processes.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I think I look forward to literally getting you back on like in a few months' time, because there'll be a
Awesome.
whole new wave, but the fundamentals will remain the same as I think we've hammered home in that episode. So fabulous. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.